I don't have an official intro, but I'm really excited to have you, David. If for people that don't know what you do, can you give us like a brief kind of description of what you do?
Yeah, man. So I have a master's degree in architecture. So technically I'm an architect. I'm also kind of an artist. I'm a huge sports fan. And I make stadium related art that's kind of it comes from this place of it's like the piece of memorabilia that I always wanted when I was a kid, but never existed. So I make these pieces of stadium art. Yeah, that are unique and fun, and it's kind of meant to capture these moments in history and these moments within our communities and our families and our friends and our like groups that we all think so fondly of, right? Like we all look at our club stadium as like a second home. And I've always thought that these are really special pieces of architecture because they hold all of your memories, right? And like if you grow up in a nice house and you have all these great memories with your parents and everything, like those memories are cool. But once you move out of that house, it's somehow different, right? But like my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, and I can go back to my favorite baseball team stadium and you can like feel him sitting next to you. And that's really special. And those kinds of things don't happen in every building, they happen in stadiums. And so I find them to be really special buildings, and so I kind of try to memorialize those things.
Yeah, I kind of agree so much with that because even when I went to a Valencia game, despite the kit, I'm not a Valencia, let's say, hardcore fan. But the moment we got in, and just hit the stadium kind of hits you when you come in through the door, right? You see the whole surroundings, you see the lighting, the TV, but then what ends up happening is like you see the people around it, and like you can tell what it means to them to be at their local, and like it's hard, like kind of maybe it's just me, but like I get like a little watery, like I get kind of
I
emotional,
do too.
like it doesn't matter if it's not my team. I just know that this place means so much to so many people. So for me, it's just like
Right.
I'm just happy to be almost a fly on the wall. Like of course I paid for the ticket, but like for me, it's such a unique experience at every game. That's why I love going around the world and I love watching games in the most random places. Like I'll go to Jamaica and watch a soccer game there. It doesn't matter to
No,
me.
I'm exactly the same way, and it's so special, and it's this thing where we as football fans have this outlet, right? And this camaraderie, and it's so obvious, and it doesn't matter where you come from, and it doesn't matter what who your club is. It just matters that on a human level, you can see that in other people. And I think that's so beautiful. And you don't need to be a fan of that club to appreciate that, right? You don't need to be a Valencia fan to walk into the Valencia Stadium and see it and understand it and experience it, because on a basic level, it's so human. That's the beautiful thing for me. And again, like going back to what I do, it's about capturing that and memorializing that so that you can put it on your desk or you can hang it on your wall and always like have that with you, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because you kind of a little bit I've seen online talk about your past job in sales and kind of like this is almost like a second career, maybe not a second career, but a career that you
Yeah,
kind of
no, it
went
is.
back to. Is it? Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
tell me more about what you were doing before and like maybe what that journey was like to actually becoming an architect?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been kind of a creator in various different ways. I play guitar. I like to draw. So I've always like had artistic side of myself. But I went to school for communications originally, and I was in sales forever. And I just kind of got to a place in life where I was like, I do well and I was successful, but I wasn't happy or really like inside. I wasn't really content. And so I made the decision to go and get an architecture degree. And my original plan was not to do this for a living. In fact, my original plan was just to do this as like a way to get into some of the stadium architecture firms. And over the last 4 years, these little models that I make have kind of like taken on a life of its own, and it's exciting, and it's I'm really grateful because, you know, I have friends in Amsterdam, in Marseille, in Dortmund, in Glasgow, in Manchester, in Belgrade, and like that, it speaks directly to what we were just talking about, where it's like it doesn't have to be my club for me to see it, right? It doesn't have to be your club for you to see it. And so to be like even just a little part of that community, even just for like a couple of days, it's so cool. And it brings a tear to my eye, because like I feel so grateful for that, because I can have like my little corner of my life that includes a little bit of Belgrade and a little bit of Dortmund and a little bit of Amsterdam, and like that's like, it's so cool. It's amazing.
It's very relatable with me, because my first job was engineering, and I was also kind of in the same place as you. Like I was making good money. I wasn't just fulfilled, and I was always doing YouTube on the side. You know, started like 5 years ago making my own content, and from that I managed to get another job that's completely remote, completely like YouTube related, allows me to move to Spain. Something that wouldn't be possible with an engineering job. So I fully relate with you on the second career path. But what I wanted to know specifically was, when you started going into architect school, right? Did you have an idea in mind already to start using that knowledge for stadiums, or did this kind of just happen along the way? When you were on the internet, you saw stadiums, or what?
No, so I've always been a stadium nerd, and I actually was building little models of stadiums when I was a kid.
Out of Lego?
And yeah, Lego, but I was also doing them like out of cardboard.
Wow.
And so I never did anything with it, right? And then, well, there were some things that happened in my life, and I needed a hobby, and my friends and family were like, oh, you should make another stadium. Remember when you used to do that when you were a little kid? And I was like, oh, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea. And so it was just a hobby. Yeah. And then the way I went to architecture school actually was because a friend of mine who's an architect saw one of these little models that I was making in my apartment, and he was like, oh, I need to introduce you to my friend. He's the dean of architecture at Kent State. And I was like, okay, I don't know what he's going to say to me. It's just a stupid little model. And anyways, I made an appointment, and I take this little model down to this guy, and he's like, oh, yeah, you should be an architect.
Really?
And I was like, okay, let's talk about this. And he like shows me around the building, and he's telling me about the program and everything, and yeah, one thing led to another, and I was like, all right, you know what, this is actually a really good idea, let's do this.
It seems so obvious, but it never is obvious until you have someone else or some sort of awakening, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I was never planning on doing these little models like permanently, right? It was, in my mind, it was, okay, I'm going to go to architecture school, I'm going to get a degree in architecture, and then because I do these little stadiums, once I'm graduated, then I can apply to the firms that build stadiums and design stadiums. And I can be like, look how passionate I am. See, I make these little models on the side. But then COVID happened, and the architecture job market got really bad for about a year. And in the process, I made all these other connections and talked to some business people. And so we're actually launching Stadiums for Ants as a full, real business out of Amsterdam. And that's why I'm moving. Yeah. So basically the story is that we sell these directly to the clubs, and they use them as fundraising mechanisms. So, for example, we sold 2 models directly to Rangers, and with those 2 models, they raised about £25,000.
Wow, beautiful! That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, and again, that's all for their charity, right? They have a charity foundation, and so the money goes to, helping refurbish the football fields that they have around Glasgow for youth, and for all these other programs that they're involved with the NHS. So it's just like the whole thing is just, for me, it's just like super feel good, right? I get to do what I love to do. I get to make friends all over the world. And and we get to use these things to raise money for charity. So it's like, this is
it's
great.
a home run, really. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Did you, when you started making these, did you in your own head like think, wow, this is really good, or like did you have no basis on the quality and before you could sell it and all that kind of stuff?
No, I had no idea. And to be honest with you, like there are times where I still sit here working on them, and I'm like, no, this is not good enough.
Really?
But this is the effect of life. Like it doesn't matter what you do, you're always your own harshest critic, right?
Sure.
So yeah, listen, man, I get a lot of messages on Twitter and Instagram. Oh, we love your stuff. It's so interesting, and I'm so grateful for that. But I don't always feel it myself because I always want to make them better. So there's always that part of me that's like, no, this isn't quite good enough.
That's with every creative pursuit. You always think you can do better, but you can't really do better until you make the first couple of models and you get better from those. You don't get better just by constantly trying to fix the same thing, right? Like
exactly.
That's how you hit a wall, and then you can't really go from there.
Right.